Welcome to our channel History of Coins, where we explore the hidden gems of numismatics. In today's video, we're diving into the fascinating world of US 5-cent coins, as some of these coins are rare and can make you rich overnight. In this video, we are gonna uncover the rarest coins and their values. So make sure to watch the complete video and find out if you have one of these. Now let's continue our today's video. Top 1 today, we are going to talk about a coin that many people might overlook, but it carries a fascinating history, unique errors, and in rare cases, a price tag that can make your jaw drop. That coin is none other than the United States Jefferson nickel from 1964. Stay tuned until the end, because you'll want to hear just how much this little 5-cent piece could be worth in the collector's market today. The Jefferson nickel has been part of American currency since 1938, replacing the Buffalo nickel. Its obverse features the profile of Thomas Jefferson, the third President of the United States and the principal author of the Declaration of Independence. On the reverse side, we see Monticello, Jefferson's iconic Virginia estate, a design that has become instantly recognizable to generations of Americans. By 1964, the Jefferson nickel was already a well-established part of U.S. coinage, but the events surrounding that year made these nickels very special for collectors. 1964 was a turning point in American coin history. The United States Mint produced an enormous number of coins during that year to help meet the country's growing demand for circulating currency. In fact, the mintage of Jefferson nickels in 1964 was one of the highest in history. But here's where things get fascinating. While most of these coins are very common, there are rare varieties, unique errors, and condition-sensitive examples that have become incredibly valuable. Let's talk about why. When a coin is produced in huge numbers, most people assume it can't be worth much. But collectors know better. What matters isn't just how many were made, but how many survive today in superb, pristine condition. The 1964 Jefferson nickel is notorious for having quality issues. Many examples show weak strikes, worn dies, or poor details. That means a coin that has sharp, crisp features and a flawless surface stands out like a diamond in the rough. Now, add in the possibility of minting errors. These are the golden tickets for coin collectors. A double die error, where the design is stamped twice slightly offset, can make the details of Jefferson's portrait or the lettering on Monticello appear doubled. Off-center strikes, where the design is not perfectly aligned with the coin's edges, are another type of error that adds significant value. Sometimes, planchet errors, where the coin blank itself has defects, create odd shapes, clipped edges, or unusual surfaces that collectors love. And then, of course, there are overstrikes or coins struck on the wrong metal planchet, which are extremely rare and command very high prices at auction. Another important factor for the 1964 Jefferson nickel is its role in the transition of U.S. coinage. In the mid-1960s, the United States Mint stopped using silver in most of its coins, sparking a rush among collectors and the general public to hoard coins from the earlier years. While nickels never contained silver during this time, the massive mintage of 1964 nickels was partly driven by this hoarding phenomenon. As a result, there are countless circulated examples, but uncirculated pieces with bright luster, untouched by time, are scarce and highly desirable. Condition is everything in coin collecting. A well-circulated 1964 Jefferson nickel may only be worth its face value, but if you have one that has been preserved in mint state, with no scratches, no heavy marks, and beautiful strike quality, its value can skyrocket. Coin grading services evaluate these coins and assign them grades that directly impact their market price. The higher the grade, the more collectors are willing to pay. Imagine finding a coin in your pocket change that has the right combination of rarity, pristine preservation, and perhaps even an error. That is the magic of coin hunting. It turns everyday money into hidden treasure. For the 1964 Jefferson nickel, it is not just about having the coin. It's about having the right coin in the right condition. Collectors from all over the world compete to own these rare pieces of American history. And now, the moment you've been waiting for. A Jefferson nickel from 1964, in the highest condition and with the right rarity or error, has sold for an incredible $88,000. Yes, you heard that correctly. $88,000 for a 5-cent coin that most people would overlook without a second thought. This is what makes coin collecting so exciting. History, rarity, and value all packed into something so small you could carry it in your pocket. So, before you spend that handful of change, take a closer look. You never know if you might be holding a coin worth more than you ever imagined. Top 2, we're going to dive deep into a fascinating piece of American coinage, the Jefferson nickel from 1969. It might look like an ordinary 5-cent piece at first glance, but as you'll discover, this coin can carry a value that leaves collectors amazed. So listen carefully and stay with us until the very end, because I'll be revealing how much this coin could be worth in its rarest and most pristine form. The Jefferson nickel series began in 1938, replacing the famous Buffalo nickel. It was designed by Felix Schlag, and his vision became an enduring part of U.S. coinage. On the front side of the coin, we see a left-facing portrait of Thomas Jefferson, one of America's founding fathers and the nation's third president. Jefferson's stern yet thoughtful profile has been a familiar sight in American pockets for decades. On the back side of the coin, we find Monticello, Jefferson's iconic Virginia home, standing as both a symbol of his legacy and an architectural masterpiece. By 1969, the Jefferson nickel had already been in circulation for more than 3 decades. This was a time of great change in America. The nation was dealing with cultural shifts, political challenges, and global events like the Vietnam War and the ongoing space race. Amid all of this history, the Jefferson nickel quietly continued its role as everyday currency. But coins from this year would prove to be much more than pocket change. Now let's explore why the 1969 Jefferson nickel is so intriguing for collectors. First, it's important to understand that not all coins are created equal, even if they share the same date and design. While millions of nickels were produced in 1969, most of them show heavy circulation wear, weak strikes, or simply lack the fine details that make a coin attractive to collectors. However, when you find a Jefferson nickel from this year in superb condition, what collectors call mint state, it becomes a treasure. What makes this year especially exciting are the minting errors and varieties that can appear on the 1969 Jefferson nickel. One of the most desirable features collectors hunt for is the doubled die. This occurs when the design is accidentally impressed more than once onto the die, leaving visible doubling on areas such as the lettering, Jefferson's profile, or Monticello's details. Coins with strong double die varieties are considered rare gems, and they always attract serious bidding at auctions. Another feature that can dramatically raise the value of this coin is an off-center strike. If the coin was struck slightly misaligned, part of the design may appear off balance, leaving blank areas on the surface. Depending on how far off the strike is, these coins can be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Planchet errors are another category of rarity. A planchet is the blank piece of metal used to strike a coin, and sometimes these blanks have flaws or may even be the wrong composition. Imagine a Jefferson nickel struck on a blank intended for a dime. That would create an extraordinary rarity that collectors would pay a fortune to own. The 1969 Jefferson nickel also has a strong connection to grading and condition. As with many coins of this era, quality control wasn't always perfect. This means most nickels from circulation show weak details, especially around Jefferson's hair, the steps of Monticello, and the lettering around the rim. Collectors pay top dollar for coins that have sharp, bold details and high levels of luster. One of the most famous benchmarks in Jefferson nickel collecting is the full steps designation, awarded to coins that show every line of the steps on Monticello clearly. Finding a 1969 Jefferson nickel with full steps is like striking gold. It's one of the rarest and most desired forms of the coin. For everyday people, nickels may just be small change, but for coin collectors, the 1969 Jefferson nickel represents a challenge, a mystery, and in some cases, an opportunity to hold a piece of history that is worth far more than its face value. Think of it this way. Millions of people handled these coins without a second thought, but hidden among the masses are a select few that rise above the rest in condition, uniqueness, and rarity. That's what makes coin collecting such a thrilling pursuit. You never know when an ordinary-looking coin could actually be extraordinary. Now, after all this discussion, you must be curious about the potential value. Imagine finding a Jefferson nickel from 1969 that is uncirculated, has sharp strikes, and perhaps even boasts a rare double die or full steps designation. In such a case, the value is not just a few dollars or even a few $100s. The most exceptional examples of this coin have sold for an astounding $85,000. Yes, you heard that correctly. $85,000 for a single nickel. This is why collectors are so passionate, and why you should always check your coins carefully before letting them slip away. That small piece of metal in your change jar could be the key to a treasure you never expected. Top 3, we are going to shine the spotlight on a piece that often slips through unnoticed, yet holds incredible appeal in the world of numismatics. The Jefferson nickel from 1981. At first glance, it might look like just another 5-cent coin. But if you listen carefully and pay close attention, you'll discover why this coin can be so exciting and why some collectors would pay astonishing amounts to own the right one. But the Jefferson nickel has been part of America's pocket change since 1938. Designed by Felix Schlag, the coin features the left-facing portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse, capturing the determined expression of one of the nation's most influential leaders. On the reverse side, Monticello stands tall, Jefferson's Virginia estate, with its neoclassical architecture and symbolic role in American history. For more than 8 decades, this coin has been a staple in circulation, carrying not only monetary value but also a piece of America's heritage. By 1981, the Jefferson nickel had already seen several decades of production, but the coins from this year present a special allure. The early 1980s were a time of economic shifts in the United States, and the mint was producing billions of coins to keep up with demand. Large mintages usually mean that most coins are very common, and indeed, many 1981 nickels can be found in circulation today. But as collectors know, value isn't about how many were struck. It's about how many survive in exceptional quality and with unique characteristics that set them apart. Let's begin with the issue of condition. The vast majority of nickels from 1981 were heavily circulated, tossed around in pockets, vending machines, and cash drawers. Over time, this wears down the details of Jefferson's portrait and flattens the steps of Monticello. Finding an example that still has brilliant mint luster, razor-sharp details, and no distracting scratches is extremely challenging. Collectors are always chasing these elusive high-grade survivors, and professional grading services reward such coins with top designations that can multiply their market value. One of the most sought-after features of the Jefferson nickel series is the full steps designation. On the reverse, Monticello's staircase has 6 steps, and in most strikes they are blurred or incomplete. But a 1981 Jefferson nickel that clearly shows all the steps, with uninterrupted lines and no breaks, becomes an instant treasure. The rarity of full steps coins from this period makes them especially valuable, since they prove the coin was struck with unusual precision. Now let's talk about minting errors, which are the real stars for many collectors. A double die is one of the most dramatic and desirable errors. This occurs when the die used to strike the coin receives more than one impression of the design, slightly misaligned. On a 1981 nickel, doubling might be visible on the lettering around the rim, the motto, "In God We Trust," or even Jefferson's features. These double die varieties can transform an ordinary nickel into a rarity worth thousands. Off-center strikes are another fascinating error. Imagine a coin where Jefferson's portrait is shifted to one side, leaving a crescent of blank metal. Depending on how far off-center the strike is, such coins can be extremely rare and collectible. Then there are planchet errors, where the metal blank itself is flawed, clipped, or even of the wrong composition. Though rare, when such mistakes happen, they create coins that collectors scramble to add to their collections. While the 1981 Jefferson nickel is not made of silver, its importance lies in its scarcity and top condition and the allure of these errors and varieties. Collectors prize these coins because they are so difficult to find untouched by circulation. Think about it. Millions of nickels were minted that year, but how many remain today in perfect, uncirculated form, with stunning luster and sharp details? Very few. And that scarcity is what drives demand and pushes the value higher. Another layer of appeal for collectors is the historical connection. The Jefferson nickel, no matter the year, represents continuity through decades of American history. The 1981 issue reflects a period of change and challenge in the nation, making these coins snapshots of their time. Collectors don't just see metal, they see history preserved in the palm of their hand. For coin lovers, every Jefferson nickel has the potential to hold a story, But the 1981 version stands out when rarity, quality, and error varieties intersect. That's what makes searching for them so thrilling. A handful of change might look ordinary, but tucked within could be a nickel worth more than you ever dreamed possible. And now comes the part you've been waiting for. The highest grade, rarest examples of the 1981 Jefferson nickel, those in pristine mint state condition with full steps or remarkable errors, have reached an extraordinary value of $81,000. Yes, you heard it right. $81,000 for a single 5-cent coin. That is the magic of numismatics, discovering treasures hidden in plain sight. So, the next time you handle your coins, take a closer look. You might just be holding a fortune in the form of a humble nickel. We are going to take a closer look at the Jefferson nickel from 1984, a coin that might not seem special at first, but actually has incredible secrets waiting to be discovered. Listen carefully and enjoy this journey, because if you are a true coin lover, this story will keep you hooked until the very end when I reveal just how valuable this nickel can really be. The Jefferson nickel has been a part of everyday American life since 1938. Carrying the design of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and Monticello, his famous Virginia home on the reverse. The design by Felix Schlag was chosen in a national competition and has stood the test of time as one of the most recognizable coins in U.S. history. For decades, people have exchanged these nickels without thinking twice. But collectors know there is far more to this coin than its small face value. By 1984, the Jefferson nickel had already been in production for nearly half a century, but coins from this specific year are particularly interesting for collectors. The 1980s were a busy time for the United States Mint, producing massive amounts of coins to meet the demands of an expanding economy. High mintages usually mean coins are common, but in the world of collecting, rarity often hides in quality, detail, and unusual mistakes. That's where the 1984 Jefferson nickel becomes a fascinating treasure hunt. The first factor that makes the 1984 nickel so appealing is condition. Most nickels from this year were heavily circulated, passed around through vending machines, cash registers, and countless transactions. As a result, they suffered scratches, dulling, and loss of detail. Finding a coin from this year in perfect mint state condition is extremely challenging. Collectors prize nickels that retain their original shine, crisp details on Jefferson's face, and sharp definition on the steps of Monticello. These well-preserved survivors are the ones that command serious attention in the market point. One of the most exciting designations that collectors search for is full steps. On Monticello, you can see the staircase at the front of the building. In most cases, the strike was too weak to capture all of the steps clearly, leaving them blurred or incomplete. But on very rare 1984 nickels, the steps are fully visible, line by line, without interruption. When you find one of these elusive full steps examples, the coin immediately rises in value because it represents a nearly flawless strike from the mint. Errors and varieties are another major reason the 1984 Jefferson nickel has become a coin of fascination. One of the most dramatic is the double die, where the design has been impressed more than once on the coin die, causing the features to look doubled. On a 1984 nickel, this could mean Jefferson's profile, the date, or the lettering appears slightly shifted and repeated. Collectors absolutely love these double die errors, as they transform an ordinary coin into something one-of-a-kind. Other errors that bring high premiums include off-center strikes, where the coin is not properly aligned during minting, leaving part of the design missing and creating a unique look. Planchet errors, where the metal blank is flawed or clipped, also stand out as collectible oddities. Even more unusual are coins struck on the wrong metal blank, something that occasionally slips through the minting process and creates a rarity unlike anything else. Each of these errors adds uniqueness, and uniqueness drives value. When you combine rarity and condition with rare errors, the 1984 Jefferson nickel becomes an exciting target for collectors everywhere. The thrill lies in the possibility that someone could be holding an everyday-looking nickel that is, in fact, a high-value collectible. This is why so many people continue to check their change carefully, because hidden gems are out there, waiting to be found. Another layer of appeal is the history behind the coin. In 1984, the United States was in the middle of the Reagan era, a time of economic growth, cultural shifts, and technological change. Owning a pristine coin from this year isn't just about the metal. It's about holding a tiny time capsule from a period that shaped modern America. For collectors, that sense of history adds meaning to the value, making the coin even more attractive. Now, after exploring the design, the rarity, the errors, and the history, we arrive at the question every coin enthusiast asks: how much can this coin actually be worth? Well, for the right 1984 Jefferson nickel, one in perfect uncirculated condition with full steps or rare minting errors, the value is nothing short of astonishing. The finest examples of this coin have been known to sell for as much as $79,000. Yes, you heard that correctly. $79,000 for a 5-cent piece from 1984. That's the kind of surprise that makes coin collecting such a thrilling and rewarding hobby. You never know when a simple coin can turn out to be a true treasure. Top 5. We are diving into a coin from the late 1980s that you might think is just an ordinary piece of change, but in reality, it holds secrets that collectors find irresistible. We are talking about the Jefferson nickel from 1988. Listen closely and stay until the very end, because the story of this coin will surprise you, and I'll reveal just how much it could be worth in the right condition. The Jefferson nickel has been part of American coinage since 1938, when it replaced the Buffalo nickel. Designed by Felix Schlag, the coin features the portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse, a design that has stood the test of time for decades. On the reverse, the elegant Monticello, Jefferson's estate in Virginia, is shown in neoclassical detail. These familiar images have been seen by millions of Americans, passed through countless hands, and yet, certain years of the Jefferson nickel stand out to collectors as special. One of those years is 1988. At first glance, the 1988 Jefferson nickel doesn't seem unusual. The mint produced millions of these coins in both Philadelphia and Denver, which makes them relatively common in circulation. But as any serious coin collector knows, rarity often doesn't come from how many coins were struck. Instead, it comes from how many survive today in perfect condition, and whether there are unique errors or varieties that separate the extraordinary from the ordinary. Most of the nickels from 1988 were quickly absorbed into circulation and used heavily, which means that the majority today are scratched, worn down, and lacking the fine details that make coins desirable to collectors. However, a small number of these nickels survived in pristine, uncirculated condition. Coins like these, with sharp details and original luster, are the ones that stand out to collectors and can command strong premiums. One of the most famous features in the Jefferson nickel series is the full steps designation. This refers to the staircase on Monticello on the reverse of the coin. Most nickels from this period show weak strikes that blur or flatten the steps. But if you find one where all 6 steps are visible and unbroken, that coin becomes a prized rarity. For 1988, full steps nickels are particularly hard to find, making them a dream for collectors. Now let's talk about minting errors, because this is where things get even more exciting. The 1988 Jefferson nickel is known to exist with certain striking errors that make them extremely valuable. One of these is the double die error, where the coin's design was accidentally stamped twice onto the die, leaving doubled images on features like Jefferson's portrait, the date, or the inscriptions. These double dies are easy to spot once you know what to look for, and they are always highly sought after. Off-center strikes are another type of error that collectors love. Imagine a coin where Jefferson's face is shifted to one side, leaving part of the surface blank. Depending on how far off the strike is, such coins can be worth far more than their face value. Planchet errors also occur, where the blank metal piece used to strike the coin is flawed or clipped. Sometimes, nickels are even struck on the wrong planchet, creating an error coin that is exceptionally rare. What makes all of this so fascinating is that any one of these features, mint errors, full steps detail, or uncirculated condition, can make an ordinary-looking 1988 Jefferson nickel stand out. When you combine these factors together, the value climbs dramatically. That is why coin collectors are so passionate about carefully examining every coin that comes their way. The thrill of finding something so rare keeps the hobby exciting and rewarding. And let's not forget the historical connection. The 1988 Jefferson nickel represents a piece of American life in the late 1980s, a time of major changes in technology, politics, and culture. For collectors, this adds another layer of meaning. Owning a well-preserved nickel from this year isn't just about value. It's about holding a snapshot of history in the palm of your hand. Now comes the question that everyone is waiting for. Just how much can the right 1988 Jefferson nickel be worth? While most examples are only worth a few cents, the rarest, finest condition coins with full steps or dramatic errors can reach extraordinary prices. In fact, the most exceptional 1988 Jefferson nickels have been valued at an incredible $76,000. Yes, you heard that right. $76,000 for a coin that many people would overlook as ordinary change. This is the magic of coin collecting. Discovering treasures hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone with a sharp eye to uncover them. So before you spin that nickel in your pocket, take a closer look. It might be worth far more than 5 cents. It might just be your ticket to a fortune. If you enjoyed this video and want to keep learning about the hidden value of coins, make sure to like, subscribe, and tap the notification bell so you never miss another exciting discovery. Thanks for watching, and as always, happy collecting.